Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission for December 16th, 2021. Oh my gosh, I am so tired. Welcome back, everyone, for all my subscribers and my regular viewing audience. You really do put so much into this process, so I really thank you. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. If you find any of this content after taking some time to check it out, inspiring, helpful, giving you some guidance in a moment when you may feel like you need it, you can really support this work in a number of ways. But one of the easiest things you can do is subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, because it actually does make an impact on the algorithm that decides how these videos are going to be suggested to other people. So welcome to Thursday, everyone. 2021. We're coming into the home stretch of 2021. Did it seem to pan out the way that maybe we had anticipated? Maybe, perhaps, if we've been really paying attention at the beginning of 2021, maybe it did pan out exactly the way that we anticipated. Some not so much for other people, but in any case, here we are. So all of the horoscope or astrology forecasts per sign for the full moon, they are all up. They're really easy to get to on YouTube. They're consolidated into a playlist that is the astrology forecast, so you can just go right to the playlist and find your sign, rising sign, moon sign, and then sun sign in that order, because that is how relevant they're going to be to the individual. And if you're on BitChute, I'm going to look into it and see if you can create playlists within your channel. But as of now, all you have to do is just scroll down if you're subscribed on BitChute, and you'll find the video for your sign or signs if you want to check that out. So that'll be a bi-weekly thing for the full moon and the new moon that I'll be implementing here. So that was like a 3-day marathon of constant recording, and it feels like it was one full day. So I am spent right now. So after this transmission, I'm going to take a very, very long walk out in the woods and unplug for a little while, because I think we all need to gather ourselves here for not only the upcoming full moon, but the solstice that's happening right after. And then Saturn squaring Uranus on Christmas Eve, if you celebrate Christmas, and Venus stationing retrograde. There's just so much happening in the week coming up here, especially after the full moon. It's going to be a very big reveal, I think, for all of us in terms of some outdated ideas and concepts and information, right? Data. Gemini represents just the raw data and the empirical reasoning that we engage with that data. And there's something very important that we all need to see about what we have been accumulating in terms of data and reasoning and logic and evidence for the past 18 months, with the nodal axis in Gemini and Sagittarius having to do with the realm of the mind and the higher mind. And soon, so much more of an experiential space. Very, very soon. And that really brought itself to our awareness, I think, with the full moon lunar eclipse. The moon right now is in the late area of Taurus, which means that she is also in conjunction with the Pleiades, which is also the same area that the full moon lunar eclipse was in terms of the eclipsed moon, and where the North Node will be moving into is this Pleiadian territory. So there's a lot of things that I want to cover today, a lot of fixed star energy that is being brought up right now, and I think this is a good time to kind of familiarize ourselves with some of these symbols and archetypes, and if we're already familiar with them, maybe go back over and just take a review. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is how we pick up on things. Maybe we missed the first or fifth or 100th time around, because soon it will be much more, collectively we'll be much more drawn to an experience. It's going to be very resource heavy when we talk about Taurus and Scorpio. So it's okay to let go, right? The stigma attached to something like a bankruptcy, for instance, and I'm not trying to get into the whole realm of the economy and the spell that is keeping our entire economy and our currency, in value. That's a different conversation. But what I will say is that in terms of the Sabian symbol of this upcoming full moon, there's something, bankruptcy as an option or as an action, right? And even bankruptcy in terms of ideas, right? That there is a fixed, closed system of cause and effect. And eventually there may be a point where we are so almost crushed by the pressure of some sort of debt that we can't get out from under, that we just get released from it, and allows us to start with a fresh, clean slate. And we do need that as we're about to move into the Cancer realm. So as I was doing the last in the last day, doing the more of the astrology forecast for the signs, I started getting really, really strong Cancerian vibes, like really strong. And I didn't understand why, because nobody's chart for the most part is being aspected right this moment. But what I realized, of course, was that the moon's going to be in Cancer at the solstice. And in fact, it's going to be at the solstice time that the moon will be in a direct opposition to not only Venus, but Pluto. So we're going through an initiation right now, in some ways, and it's really getting us ready to, start to pull in, circle the wagons, so to speak, of our own soul. And it's not to say that we're going to hide necessarily, but the concept of camouflage, the concept of shielding, the concept of a very strong toroidal field that we are in total control and mastery over, of what gets in, what gets out, and what stays out, is going to be really, really important, especially when the moon is in a direct opposition to Pluto. And of course, Venus will have stationed retrograde by that point. I'm right around the full moon is when Venus is going to station retrograde and come back over Pluto. And so at that time, it's going to be roughly around the time too that the moon in Cancer is going to oppose both of those planets and bring back around what it was that kind of went sideways for us when there was the first conjunction with Venus and Pluto. So it's different for everybody. It may not have even impacted you directly, although I really find that hard to believe right now, but it may be the case that it was something that you just interfaced with out in the world that brought your awareness to certain dynamics. But it's going to be the moon in Cancer, and it's coming up in the reading today too. The whole Chariot motif and kind of charging into battle. And remember, Mars is really wanting to go into battle right now, very much so. And if we can transcend the conflict in and of itself and see it for the larger picture, we're going to be a lot better off, I'd say, in the coming days here, especially as we get to this full moon and the moon moves into Cancer, and we kind of plant our roots emotionally and intuitively, and the way that we adapt to the environment with the moon in Cancer. And things are about to get very deep and sensitive, right? And we are really tasked to let go of something for good that needs to be let go within us, our own subconscious, our own feeling landscape, so that we can make a decision and plant ourselves in that same realm, knowing what we have let go of and knowing what we are stepping into. Now, we're not going to see the full picture, but at least in the realm of ideas, mind, information, and concepts, we will be able to see it. This will be a big full moon, and the sun is going to be in conjunction with the center of the galaxy at 27 to 28 degrees Sagittarius. We're slated to get some pretty substantial, potentially, solar flares. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. solar flares. Right now, we're still in a coronal hole stream, and you can start to see that the electromagnetic activity is starting to go up a little bit, but it hasn't been anything massive yet. There hasn't been any flaring quite yet, but there's a lot of anticipation of that being the case. And imagine having these massive flares from the sun while in conjunction with the center of the galaxy. It's just going to be this whammy. And then right on the full moon, right? So I anticipate, and I'm not suggesting necessarily that we should, I'm just saying anticipate, that's all. And be ready to see what is being shown, because we are going to have to act on it in some way. Maybe not right away, maybe not out in the world, but it'll be something within each of us that is going to be reflected, that is just like, okay, that has run its course. And in fact, I can't move into the future necessarily until I get out from under whatever that set of ideas or concepts, or even just the way our mind functions. It needs to be released. And so if you're feeling tired, I mean, I know, and I am, just because I've been doing this marathon of recording these videos, but whatever the reason is, give yourself the rest, because when the moon comes into Gemini, again, it's going to start, and that's later today, right? It's going to start stimulating quite a bit of consideration, curiosity, discovery, exploration within our own selves. So right now, we can really tap into the stillness. And we'll go over the astrology and see how we can get support and really harness the energy of the moon moving across the Pleiades right now. So you may have found some, if you are Pleiadian starseed, many of the starseeds do have Pleiadian markings. Not everybody, but most do, at least in my experience. So you may have found some dream time, making contact or getting in guidance or information, or just any, we've talked about the signs and the omens that are coming through, the synchronicities that are coming through different areas. That's been coming up all week. And so still, you want to stay vigilant, you want to stay plugged in. And the need for camouflage is going up now as a strategy, in particular, because it's on, right? It's definitely on now, and things are being put into, they've been put into place, and now they're getting put into action. And so the stakes are even higher, it feels like. So give yourself the time to really just be within yourself and to feel what that feels like. Right now, especially if you're feeling tired and exhausted, because that's the fastest way anybody can burn out, is just pushing through when they actually don't need to, and it's just out of anxiety or worry or habit, right? And Mercury in Capricorn right now is not really helping us relax in that way, because our mind is now very focused on goals and how to take this how to capitalize on group effort to institute something concrete, and really starting to think very seriously and goal oriented about it. And there's no getting around that. That's just where Mercury is right now. And so, I mean, we can think about things, certainly, but in terms of like our actual intuitive channel and how we feel on the inside, it really wants to just be in relationship, I feel like, with the actual world itself. And that can be very difficult when you are plugged in, depending on what operating system you're actually plugged into. So I'm going to check in here with the chat and kind of make sure the stream is going well. It seems like it is, so that's good. And we're going to get right into the reading and start looking at the message that I was able to bring forward this morning. So I'm curious how people are feeling, and really please take care of yourself as much as you can. It's really going to be a very wild week with the full moon leading to the solstice, Saturn and Uranus coming into exact square. That's already happening, right? It's building right now. And this is an initiation process, and it's kind of playful, and that's come up a couple times, and it's coming up again right now in this reading, as we're going to see. So it's okay. It's okay because it is an initiation. It absolutely is. And you can see some of these. If you've been here with this channel, then you are familiar with a lot of these energies. Especially here's the octopus with our camouflage. Here's the rattlesnake initiating our initiation into the role of a healer, and some new energy too. Some energy that's very familiar, but we haven't seen the chariot in a long time. And I think we're finally at a point now where we are building some resistance and some resiliency and some armor and containment that will allow us to actually move forward. So we're gonna go into this reading in fullness here, but we're gonna take a moment to get ourselves grounded and settled and modulate our energy so that when we do receive the message, it's coming through a very clear channel and not, our filter is not is not dirty or being impacted in any other way. So and take a moment here to make contact with the ground, which then allows you to then make contact even deeper into the earth herself. Imagining that your contact point, there are a root system of pure light and reaching down into the crust of the planet, down deep underneath the skin of the planet, so to speak, and connecting into the lattice structure of the planetary grid, really focusing on the Earth Star Chakra as our main nodal axis point into this grid, and just checking in with it. Is it feeling robust? Is it feeling weak? Is it slow and sluggish? Maybe it is rapid and weak as well. So we want to just check in and see what's going on. And now that we are there, hopefully, we're going to take a very deep breath in, deep diaphragmatic breath in. And release. It's so important right now that we are energetically getting into that Taurus state. It's really important. So remember that bowl in particular is tuned to C major, which is corresponds to your root chakra. So any kind of tone that you can utilize that is a natural resonance, right? An actual instrument, your own voice. You can listen to recordings of people as well doing, with the crystal bowls or the Tibetan bowls, or even people who are chanting or singing. Just be really careful about digitally created binaural beats and tones and music, meditation music, because it's very easy to embed that type of stuff with subliminal messages and that you don't actually really want. And so I've taken a long time to vet a very small group of these types of recordings or tracks or whatever that over time I have come to realize that they are, at least for me, they are safe and they are capable of doing what they claim to do. But it's really important that you are very discerning about that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, a natural instrument or your own voice, and somebody also had brought up on Facebook tuning forks as well. Those are all incredible because they're creating actual sound waves in real time in your physical presence, which is going to have, I would say, more impact in the long run than any kind of digitally created frequency. Not saying that that's bad, it just the acoustics of real life are so much more potent when we're going to stay in our real life bodies. So they have a real impact. Okay, guys, so here we are for today's reading. the intuitive part of our transmission. Here's our Ace of Cups now. Now it's upright. And speaking of the Cancer energy, here is the chalice or the vessel, which is really us, and our heart is the chalice and the vessel. Now, of course, our sacral chakra is the seat of our creative power as well. So you can also identify the womb, for instance, or the pelvic bowl as this area too. And if you kind of look at this whole picture, you can see that the cup is kind of is sectioned off in these two areas. So you have the part where the energy is moving into the top part, but there is a very distinctly bottom part here. And I don't know if it's necessarily part of the cup, but it feels like a base that it's situated on. And we just saw this card just a couple days ago when it was reversed, didn't we? In terms of, we have to see the ugly for the beautiful and the beautiful for the ugly. And to really get us in line with what it is that we actually want. So I think that ultimately people have made a decision. This is collective, of course, a collective reading. The Ace of Cups shows us the way deep into our soul and is a source of love, right? It is the vessel that holds our spirit, which is, again, our heart and our devotion and our care for one another. And this does show our emotional capacity. So I think that something really has shifted. And, it has come at the, at great disappointment, I think, for many people. Not everybody, of course, but it has come in some way that has allowed us to flip it over and be like really sure about where we want to situate ourselves and what is the source of our love and what is the deep way into our soul. And this shows a beginning of something. And I think that we've made a decision. We've made a decision to be for love, to be open to receiving love, to actually see the beauty in all the situations and expand our emotional capacity. So here's the Cancerian energy already kind of making itself known. And we'll, on the other side of it, end with the Chariot, which is the Cancer card. So we've already started here coming into the moment with this Ace of Cups, which I think is really, really important. So when we move on to, it's all important, but you can really see, and I think feel very much so, how we've made a decision collectively of where we want to be and how we want to receive love. And we've taken the time and we've been in the position of recognizing the ugly and the shadow and how it's inseparable from the light and from the beauty, because that's just part of living in this universe. And we've decided where we want this cup to be, what position we want it to be in, and we're ready. We're ready to receive. We're ready to hold love, and we're ready to expand on our emotional capacity. Now with the Princess of Discs as well, this is how she came out, if she's ever going to... There we go. The Princess of Discs, the Venus in the Earth sign. So Venus is in Capricorn right now, of course, and even asteroid Juno is in Capricorn right now as well. And the moon which is the more esoteric aspect of the divine feminine, right? The priestess energy. Even she's in a earth sign right now, in Taurus right now. Not for, by the end of today, she will definitely be in Gemini. Our moon will be in Gemini. But the Princess of Discs, she really is, planting that seed. And so this is the last of all of the court cards in the tarot deck, or at least the Thoth tarot. And so we know that there's an end and a beginning, because there is a planting into the ground, right? You see her wand and her staff is pointed down. It is situating itself. And again, I feel like that collectively we have made a decision to start a new cycle or a new project or a new creation, something very tangible in the earth realm and in physical creation. We are starting a new cycle and applying it to this capacity, this really open and expansive emotional capacity, right? We want to bring it into form somehow. And so the princess as an individual is very warm-hearted and sensual and generous, all of the really, really positive aspects of the Venus archetype. And she's also very unwavering and very concentrated. Remember, we've talked about the Knight of Discs too that came up this week. Again, industrious and goal-oriented and patient, and there's action there. This is different. This is, in fact, just planting, right? Just the action that's involved is just a very distinct being and an initiation, right? This is the end of a cycle and the beginning of a very physical new one, and it is very directed. I mean, in its direction, you can even see the head of the princess is facing towards the Ace of Cups. And so in her own mind, and we can embody this energy, of course, of being this princess or this Venus in the earth signs, right? The acceptance that we are about to embark on a new cycle coming from this emotional capacity in the seed point for emotional capacity. Now, we can see here too that her staff is pointing right towards the Chariot, right? And so it's these two aspects of the physical nature, of the emotional nature of the cups that comes together in the Cancerian archetype, and specifically the Chariot, as we're going to see. So embody this particular role within ourselves right now, wherever Venus is in our chart, because this is a very big indication that whatever surfaced or whatever came right to our own physical awareness with the conjunction with Pluto was transformative, and we've accepted it now. Not that we accepted it in a way that we are not sovereign or in charge of ourselves, but we realize now, I think collectively, what that was showing us, and we are ready to kind of charge forward, and we have the capacity to protect ourselves. And the camouflage aspect is going to come up many times over in this reading. So speaking of the physical world, now this has come out in a lot of ways, but now we're finding that the chess game is very much embedded into the very root of where we are gathering our power from. And with Mars in 3 degrees of Sagittarius today, this is about the transcendent ritualization of conflict that Sagittarius ultimately represents, right? It is when you bring things together, these opposing forces together, and create friction, the friction creates the heat, and the heat is the catalyst, and the catalyst is what allows for a chemical reaction or an alchemical transmutation to happen. So we're drawing our energy, actually, strangely enough, from this place of the chess game. And what is interesting to me is that when we, break this card down, that's number one, the 3. So we know that there's this first real foundational balance in a material form that is, it's the chess game itself, right? You have the 2 opposing forces that will come together and battle it out, and something will happen. And what is created? Well, what's created is a winner in the sense of the chess game. There may be other creations too, right? That we learn how to be more strategic. We learn how to be more objective. We learn how to play the long game. We learn how to detach ourselves. And this is a big part of it as well. We learn how to detach ourselves from the drama of the game and just play the game, or acknowledge there is even a game. And so we are drawing our power from this place, which is very interesting to me, because it's clearly divided and people are out for themselves. And this is not new, but this is becoming so much more available to the average person's awareness right now. And so it's important that, again, that we take a step back and not get really enmeshed in this situation, because deceit is very present, right? We're not clear on people's motives. I think that's continuing to be brought around, and that's specific strategy in some ways to keep us confused, especially with Neptune and Pisces, right? The propaganda machine is fully engaged and the fog machine is turned all the way up to 11, and we can't see anything clearly, and we just have to rely on our inner self, right? And this is, of course, is Saturn is kind of like our only real stability in this realm of like, we have to rely on inner inspiration, and Neptune and Pisces can certainly facilitate that by going into these realms in to be inspired, to be very idealistic, and not in a negative way either, but and also to connect right into that realm of imagination and fantasy so that we can be inspired, right? There's a muse there, but also, too, it makes it very hard to know what is real when people are not mastering that place. And again, this is where the camouflage is going to be really, really important. So if we participate actively, not realizing that we're just a pawn on the board, or maybe somebody else is playing a role, and we don't even know who the chess players are, right? I mean, like, those people will never be made aware to us anytime soon. In terms of identity, everything you see is on the board itself. So people are serving their own agendas or serving the agenda of whoever is playing their piece. It's important that we treat everyone involved, whoever they are, from a deeper source of wisdom. And when you can kind of put on that invisibility cloak, you can shape shift, right? Harry Potter, right, has the invisibility cloak. This is a common theme mythologically and story-wise. If you start to study the stories, either in, mythology, Greek mythology, right? Perseus, he was given a helmet that made him invisible. So this is the way the camouflaging or the flexibility, adaptability, or just the ability to shield ourselves within this realm is going to really work in our favor in terms of seeing the whole picture and knowing that this is really the root of all of it, is this chess game. So we can't necessarily I'm not saying that we can't detach, but the fact that it's upright still suggests that there's still some engagement here, and it's really for us to see something, and we can gather power from this place, right? If we're not so invested in the chess game in itself that we become identified with it, that's really difficult when you have your subconscious realm be characterized by this. But we are going into battle. I mean, the Chariot is pretty clear about that. Mars in Sagittarius is really, really chomping at the bit. And if we really draw our power personally, right, in our inner life, we can see this whole process for what it actually is. We are going to be ready to step into and engage in the situation. And also, too, because if we just take a step back for a minute, again, the Princess of Discs, right, is kind of bridging this place of the actual feeling itself with the Ace of Cups and the armor that we need to put on that will allow us to bring that love forward into some sort of victory, right? And so, but we have to be very, very keenly aware of what is going on at the root of things. And again, taking a step back and treating everyone with this deeper wisdom is a really important strategy right now. So when it comes to where we're putting our attention and conscious awareness, where we're releasing our power, add some, this is not a new dynamic for us, at least on this channel. Add some is 22, right? This is, I am here to attend to you, right? This person is studying. The counterpart over here is bringing more for that person to study. There's this Gemini aspect, or even the 11 kind of twin flame aspect, the two parts of ourselves that may be at a battle, right? Ooh, there's that chess game again, right? The two parts of ourselves that seem to be at battle, but really it's the battle between the two parts, the dark and the light, and the yin and the yang, that are actually facilitating our learning, right? This is the highest version of the Orion starseed nature that you could possibly get, right? There's a lot of Oh, there's a lot going on with the Orions, right? They don't really have the best, they haven't had the best intentions in mind for humanity, but there are a lot of Orion starseeds here right now, and it's really important that we know how to manage this, because this full moon is going to be an Orion full moon, the very last. It's going to be in conjunction with Polaris, right, our North Star. It's going to be very important to understand this dynamic, and maybe we'll have a Orion starseed meetup very soon. But ADSM is when you are able to manage your own twin flame energy, whatever that means to you. It's in that you are then able to come to this mastery and be whole, and then interface with your higher self and your guidance system, and the aspects that aren't necessarily right in front of you, but you know that they're there. So a couple ways to look at ADSM, and certainly at our conscious awareness, and where we can really release our power and what's going on right in front of us, is this realization that affirm your own strength and focus in the present, right? Bring yourself back to present. It's really easy to get pulled off track. It's really easy to get distracted. There are so many things. We just talked about this yesterday with the interference, right? So when you feel yourself getting pulled back into that, affirm to yourself that you're present in this moment, in your body, in your reality, and in your knowing. And also, too, it does declare that we've arrived at our goals. And so this is another way that you can really have an impact on the larger time wave, especially time as a cycle, right? Because if you speak it into existence as a result of your literal language, right? Speaking or writing, it's very, very powerful when we speak things. These are what spells are for. Language is nothing more than symbols, right? So you don't have to literally write things out or literally speak things in a written language, but if they are symbolized or spoken, right, through any means of using your voice to activate it, it's very powerful. So trying to affirm your own strength and focus in the present, you can declare the arrival at your goals as if they already exist, because they do, right? Because it all exists at the same time, and it's a matter of, focusing on that which, that outcome that you want, not so much that it hasn't arrived yet, but tapping into the feeling of what that is. And you can make that even more so by actually using this is the whole basis, and just magic in general is the symbolic representation being brought into form to start with. But anyway, we can put our attention on affirming our own presence, affirming that you are surrounded by all kinds of influences, and you get to choose who's coming into your field and who isn't. That's a really important thing to remember. None of us are a victim to that. Nothing can take your power. And I know it's really hard to hear when you've been incredibly traumatized and disempowered, and I can relate to that. And it takes a lot of really deep work to come to that conclusion, even being a survivor of something horrific. You give your power, your true power, it can only be given. So we have also control over, what we let in and interface with. And so again, that's part of being present and just affirming to yourself your own strength. So that's really important, because it's so easy to get caught back into the political and social conflict that really is at the root of things right now. And we're kind of in this position where we can gather a lot of strength from this place, as long as we have the wisdom to see the big picture of it. But we will have to acknowledge and affirm to ourselves that we are here, right? And not somewhere else. Because here is our chariot, is our outcome or the effect of our cause and effect relationship. So there's a lot going on in this card. So let's take a minute here, right? You have this individual that is covered in golden armor. You have this spinning disc within a spinning disc that is being held by this individual in golden armor, sitting in a cross-legged position. You have the crab on top of the head. I mean, the entire person is covered head to toe. Every single piece piece of skin is covered in armor, right? They're in a chariot. It implies movement. It implies motion, right? Cardinal water is Cancer is a cardinal sign, again, implying motion or momentum or movement, because it is the movement towards each other that allows for the protection, right? The family structure, our heritage, our traditions, our religious affiliations, our own history, and it's very much about the bonds that are created as a result of that. And so you find yourself being loyal to the Cancerian and fourth house energy. You find your faithfulness there as well, and it's very protective, and you want to protect, and it protects you as well, so that you can be emotionally vulnerable, just like the crab is, or any invertebrate honestly has the shell on the outside and a mushy inside, and the mushy inside is the real animal. The shell of the crab is just the skeleton on the outside. So you also see these hybrid animals at the front, really, responsible for pulling the chariot. So there is the momentum is coming from, again, traditions, heritage, symbolic representations of things. And the Cancerian, and specifically the moon in the fourth house, or Cancer, the moon in Cancer, I mean, this is a very deep sensitivity to the inner life, and the deep rooting of our own character and our self-esteem and our emotional security that is going to it's really going to come out when the solstice comes. I'm already picking up on it, and I didn't even understand why, and now it's like making itself very known. And then I was like, oh yeah, the moon's going to be in Cancer at the solstice, right? And the solstice is the sun coming into Capricorn. So there's going to be such a strong tension between power, institutional power of Capricorn, especially the sun in Capricorn, and Venus in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, and then just us, our own mushy little inside. What is it that is going to protect us from the storms that are raging? So it's going to be a lot of what we have decided to initiate in terms of a new material cycle when it comes to the source of love, right? And the source of our spirit. So this is pretty incredible, but it also is really signaling to me like how much the upcoming week is going to be pretty intense. And we can handle it, right? We've gotten this far, but so right now it seems like a lull, kind of, right? Not everybody is acting that way, and there's a lot of different things happening out in the world that can easily pull you back into the chess game. So just keep an eye on things, I guess. That's the way to look at it. It feels like I'm finding clarity, and stillness is essential to pass through this for the greatest benefit. I'm pacing myself. That's a great way to put it. Oh my gosh. Pacing myself, both structure and flexibility, and doing well. That's awesome. Pace yourself. That's great. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is the right way to do it. And trust that you have the armor of God, that you are protected by that which you have, fully committed to, which is love, right? And emotional, being emotionally open, and devotion, right? It's really, and compassion. It's really important. So when we look at the guidance surrounding all of this, here's our Three of Roses again, the loving elementals and the octopus. So I feel like that what this really is relating to is, on the one hand, the real strategy here of needing to shapeshift, to camouflage ourselves, to shield ourselves, to blend in with the environment in a way that nobody even notices that we're there, spiritually and energetically. But also, too, when we're talking about the loving elementals, right, this is the inner child. Maybe the inner child is what we are protecting and surrounding and giving a lot of support and security to, as we are then going into shapeshift mode, camouflage mode, invisibility mode, whatever, however you want to look at it with the octopus, going into that mode, because we are at the core here going through this battle. And we may not even want to participate actively in the battle. And so that will require that we not even be seen. But what is and it's not that we shut down completely, it's just kind of camouflaging us so that we can still tap into this inner child and these loving elementals. And remember, there's another 3, right? The 3 of roses. And we have the 3 of keys here. So the 3 of roses, how important it is to tap back into our joy, tap back into our optimism, tap back into a sense of playfulness and innocence, so that we can access the realms that we don't normally see, at least not right now. And certainly more people are seeing or what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, guys. They're just feeling it, right? Clairsentience, claircognizance, right? Not everybody. Now, some people are starting to get straight up visions, right? They're starting to have straight clairvoyant visions as opposed to just kind of these impressions. And that's going to be even more important to camouflage and shield ourselves in the midst of this battle, because that's a resource that once, and the more that you take away people's joy and optimism and a sense of security and safety and playfulness, the more that they are feeling defeated and passive and much more willing to just give up. So this is really important right now for all of us. And talk about initiation, right? The experiences that you're presently going through are initiation into fulfilling your purpose as a healer. This is why it's important for us to then come back into that moment of presence, affirm our presence in the moment, affirm that you are here and that we are all being attended to by lots of different energies, but certainly as much as there are energies to pull us off course, there's so many that are like rooting for us. And with the moon meeting the Pleiades right now, this is a big one. Like they really are here, and they really are, there's a very loud truck outside. They really are rooting for us, and they have a lot of investment in this planet and as humanities in general. So even though they can't take away all of the suffering, it's through that experience that we develop real compassion for other people. And so even if we're going through it in some way, we can still affirm our, their presence, our own presence in the moment, and realize that, again, initiation is a big word for right now. So something else to consider with the 2 of scrolls, right? The 2 worlds. And we've talked about this. Everybody's talking about this. The 2 worlds, the 2 world split. And now it's in a trifurcation, right? We have the 3 prongs of Neptune's trident here. And one's inverted and the other is upright, isn't it? And we get to decide where we align ourselves in this whole process. But the 2 world split really does lead us to well, let's go back. Yeah, I want to go back into the Cancerian element of the Chariot and really, really expand on what all of the references can be with that particular archetype. 2 worlds is, again, about a conflict, right? In that life between the outer world and our inner world is really obvious now. And the polarity, because it feels like we have to let go of our spiritual life in order to maintain stability in our material life. And once we bring our higher self into the situation, then we integrate those things, which is the ultimate, the highest, position of being a spiritual being in a material experience, is to bring them together. And Jupiter in Aquarius right now is providing a lot of assets, not even assets, but resources, right? And advocating and showering good luck on us when we are able to make every single act that is just meant to influence or to imbue every act with sacredness, every single thing, right? Carry water and chop wood. Whatever it is to us that we need to do on a regular basis is Jupiter as an advocate and as expansion and as the big picture there is making sure that we have what we need and represents us in that action. And so it's integrating the spiritual and material together. But we are very aware, and I think that many people are feeling that strain of the polarity again, and we may be really focused on it. And again, this is another reason why we bring ourselves back to center, because it's in that moment of 0 point that we find the connection between the material and spiritual. And so we might be a little bit more extra sensitive to it right now. Again, part of that is the initiation process into being a healer, because when you experience the division or you experience the fragmenting, remember how I talked about yesterday when I was at Bell Rock and Sedona and the rose quartz cracked in half, right? It's a very real experience, very, very emotionally and internally very real. And so when we can experience that process in our own lives, it allows us then to have compassion for and assist those and help heal and facilitate healing for those who are also going through it. But how could you possibly ever know unless you go through it? So again, there is the conflict still. And part of what we can do, again, is to bring ourselves back to center, bring these two aspects together within ourselves, and that opens up a whole new realm of information and support. And remember that if it's, I know it's uncomfortable, we're all going through the discomfort of not only a bifurcation, but now the trifurcation, right? Where you have the people who are still asleep, you have the people who are, and this came too from the channeling from Magenta, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, wow, I've been saying a lot of this same stuff for months, and this is the first time that the nine specifically have used like the same verbiage actually. So about going into this event horizon together, it's going to be inverted or it's going to not be inverted. And they have a group of people that are highly spiritual and starseed light workers that are just going to like kind of check out because this is it's too much to deal with. You have a group of people that are fighting really hard against on the chessboard, not realizing that they are just a piece on someone else's chessboard and risk burning themselves out. And then you have other people who have no idea, or they have just given in, or they've already been taken over and they embody their role on the chessboard. So that's already expanding. But in terms of the two world split for us, it's really about how do I bring the material and spiritual back into alignment with each other. And I think Jupiter in Aquarius is probably our biggest asset or our biggest advocate right now for this process. If we imbue our material life and aspects with sacredness, then this is the best way to bring these two aspects together. And it's going to be necessary for other people who aren't even like awake to this concept right now, or still imbued with the conflict of the chess game, that eventually they will come to this point, and it'll be those who have been initiated into this process that are going to facilitate and are doing it now, really facilitating people's healing in this way. So when we talk about the chariot, there's a couple things that I want to bring up about it real quick before we move on to the actual astrology. So we'll go back to it. So there's a couple things here. In the tarot and in the Kabbalah, the Mars is in connection with the Sun and Mercury in relation to this card or this archetype, right? Mars is now in Sagittarius, right? This is where also the Sun is in Sagittarius. And like I said, Mars is ready to go to battle. And it combines powers and we're ready to move forward. I think that's really what we're going to find here, is that there's going to be a time that we're about to proceed, right? And we can use our powers, and there's victory and success that's usually follows this card when it shows up. Now, one thing to keep in mind about this is that it can be very controversial power, because the contradictions that are present in the Gemini realm are not solved, right? That comes with Sagittarius. The contradictions are not solved. They're just controlled in order for us to actually proceed. So we have to check very carefully if the desired goal is compatible with our inner self, right? So the one thing that we are aware of to a certain extent is possibly this is still split. And one of the things that I've talked the most about, I think that one of the consistent things that people have brought up, like clients have brought up to me, is how exhausting it is to live these two separate lives. This is going to be, we're going to be solving this problem, consistently. But this really shows that sometimes you can't solve those contradictions and you just control for them so you can move forward, right? This is about planting your roots somewhere. You haven't really figured out or synthesized or come to any kind of transmutational energy, right, which is Sagittarius, and Mars is really ready to act on this. But we have to be very mindful to check our goals and make sure they are compatible with our inner self, because it's really tempting to just be like, well, this outer materialistic solution or goal seems to be the right one, and it seems that it may give me the outcome that I desire. But if it's incompatible with our inner realm, it's not going to be as sweet a victory, I think. But it does show the way ahead and an awakening of powers. And so there is victory and success, I do believe, ultimately, in a very generalized way that we can identify is coming. But we have to be mindful of this split within us. And again, the full moon is going to illuminate very strongly what it is that needs to be released, so that we can at least make a decision and stick to it, and then find our armor and move forward. It's going to be really, really bright and very illuminating in so many ways. Like with the sun at the galactic center, I just can't say how it's going to be so illuminating. So we're going to move on to today's astrology here. Because like I said, the moon is currently in conjunction with the Pleiades as we speak. And so we will look at some of the main transits that are going to be happening before she moves into Gemini, which will be happening later today. And we're also going to take some time here to go over some fixed star connections, because there's a lot of them right now. So one thing that I want to bring up first, I'm going to check back in with the chat real quick. I felt the need for this shape-shifting. I do feel it is a protection of the inner child, which will connect with deeply if we're still on the solstice. What you're saying about fragmentation and bringing the spiritual and material together as a service and your own initiation. Thank you. Yes. I think that we all really need now. So to bring it into awareness, I think is a good thing. I'm glad that because I'm feeling it too, right? I'm definitely feeling it too, very strongly. And of course, I mean, we both have Sag in our chart. So right now it's just really bringing a lot of that to the surface for Sag people. So you can check out that video, Sagittarius, especially Sag rising, Sag moon, and Sag sun on the Sagittarius video. So one thing I do want to bring up first is I want to show you something that we kind of missed yesterday, and then we'll move forward to today. So something that I want to show you is that Black Moon Lilith was in a direct, the true Lilith, right? The actual Lilith, not the average Lilith. Not that that's wrong. It's just not what I look at. Was in a direct sextile with Chiron yesterday. And we've talked about Lilith a lot, right? She represents this primal self-preservation aspect that is so much deeper than even our own subconscious. It connects us to a primal history. It connects us to prime reality. It connects us to the divine feminine in its essence. And she demands to be heard, right? These are a lot of times very stigmatized energies in the natal chart that often we suppress because people don't like it when we demand to be heard, right? And so in a sextile to Chiron yesterday, especially too because Lilith was in conjunction with a fixed star that is related, and I've talked about this in a post about the Omicron variant and how it Omicron as a Greek letter stems from the Phoenician root letter of Ion, or the I, and this is actually the fixed star that Lilith was in conjunction with yesterday to Chiron in Aries. And this Chiron is our inner child. And all of the potential of what we could be when we are truly just a child, right? All encapsulated within us as the subjective experience. And we have consistently been pulled off of our focus by imposed identities, our wounds, our trauma, right? Then we just talked about our trauma. It's very easy to get caught back into the identity of a traumatized person and think that that is who we actually are, when in fact we can be so much more, and we can be use our own consciousness and our own spiritual self, our higher self, our connection to God, can have a direct impact on the potency and the desire to be, right? We can have a direct impact on it. But Chiron here has been making this very difficult for everybody. So something about, the eye of the bull, right? Iron, and and I'll show it to you on, we can look at it and just kind of unpack it a little bit in terms of where it is. It's in the constellation of Taurus, right? It is, but in the zodiacal or Western astrology, it's in the Gemini portion of the sky, and it's but it's directly that star, the Ein star. And I've talked a lot, and I've written a little bit about Ion and the Omicron variant and like what it symbolically may reference. And, Ion, or the left eye of the bull, I mean, you are really talking about vision. And so something really needed to come out yesterday, and may have come out in a way that was, right? Again, Black Moon Lilith demands to be heard, but it was a real opportunity to invest into this potential healing or resolution of the Chiron wound, just to give us some perspective, or at least give us the vision, right? Because the Sabian symbol for the same degree is that quiver filled with arrows, right? It's penetrating. It sees through everything right to the center of it. And Black Moon Lilith representing that, I mean, we may have had a very comfortable connection, or uncomfortable, let's put it that way, right? An immersion of the dark feminine in some way. I know people who are having straight visions of Lilith or Tiamat, like really strongly. Kali, this type of energy that is surfacing, that can be really disorienting. And if we're not aware of it, or we allow the stigma of these primal urges to be, to have us suppress it, it will still come out in some way. But there was something very important about what we could get to the heart of through a connection to this part of ourselves, which is very chaotic in a lot of ways too. It's very deep. We could really, I think that, it may have reinforced this wounding of inner child, and perhaps had us act out in certain ways, or it was an investment moment here to see things and get to the heart of something and have that penetrating vision. Leave aside all of the references necessarily of the eye and the pyramid, the Illuminati. And I'm not saying that those things aren't actually relevant to Omicron, because it absolutely is. But let's just really distill it down instead of acting in fear of all of these symbols. I mean, geez, talk about imbuing them more with your energy by, it's kind of like from Harry Potter again, where nobody would talk about Voldemort, and except for the people that were like, I'm not afraid. And Hermione, of course, being the sharpest one out of all of them, is just like, hey, the more that we don't, essentially the fear is being enhanced every time we don't talk about the thing, right? And that's, that is such a strategy. It's really kind of interesting to watch people participate in it and realize that they are not. So anyway, something very important, I think, yesterday, surfacing as an investment in the moment here of being able to either see very clearly where our inner child has been wounded and everything coming from that place in terms of how we respond, how we are carrying ourselves, and what kind of actions we take, or it just reinforced it by letting this really dark feminine energy take over. And what happens is that she demands to be heard, to the point where she kind of shot herself in the foot, right? She's like, I'm not going back. And it's like, all right, well, I guess you're stuck out here in the wilderness. And I'm not making a judgment about that story. I'm just letting you know that that's what happened. She wasn't allowed to come back, even though she was kind of, hey, come back. And she's like, I'm not doing it. Anyway, that was yesterday. So if we look at, just real quick here, we look at the imagery of Ein, right? Here it is right here in the left eye of the bull, or the constellation of Taurus. And you can see here that Aldebaran is the other eye, which is in relation to Archangel Michael. So not only do you need this like penetrating vision that gets right into the absolute center of a situation with our own vision, then you have Aldebaran, or Archangel Michael, that has the flaming sword that is like, all right, now I'm going to act on it. And Aldebaran, where is Aldebaran right now? Let's look at it. Aldebaran is today is where, sorry guys, I'm so distracted now because there are people showing up at my house, and I don't know if they need me or if they know what they're doing. It's like delivery stuff, and I'm just like, what is going on? Even though I've told them many times that how to do what they need to do. Anyway, sorry. I need like a sensory deprivation like room. I need a true studio where I can't like actually interface with the world outside while I'm doing these transmissions, because it's just, wow. Here we go. I just want to show you that, today, this is much later today, but you'll see that Black Moon Lilith then comes into a conjunction with Aldebaran. So we had the vision, we had the sight, right? It's kind of like Hawkeye from the Avengers, right? He's got this like ability to just like zero in his precision. And now Black Moon Lilith is like, okay, it's time to actually shoot, or it's time to actually, shoot the arrow, or it's time to take the flaming sword and like, hit our mark. And I think that if we have taken this very seriously, then we will hit our mark. And oddly enough, it's, part of that is where the moon is. Okay, so let's look at that, because the moon currently is right in conjunction with Algol, right? The head of the Gorgon, Medusa. So there are some things that we are certainly being tasked to let go of, and we know that, and we've known that for a while. So let's talk about it. Here we go. Close out a couple windows here. All right, so it's like a nosedive, right? Where you're plunging ahead no matter what. So if you had the sight, yesterday with Black Moon Lilith, right? You weren't thrown into your own wounded inner child, but you actually were able to see through it, through this very deep connection to something very primal, then you're able to have this superior ability to challenge it all, right? And to plunge into the experiences with complete disregard to the consequences. And that sounds really foolish at first, until you realize that it's the crisis that will have us act in full independence of maybe what other people have accepted as limitation, which I would say is healing, right? Healing these wounds and getting out from under these identities that are keeping us from being sovereign and free, right? That are under control of somebody else. So we can reorient ourselves through every single issue. And that's what's happening right now. So the moon first, let's go back here right? The moon initially this morning, late last night, or really early this morning, depending on where you are, came into a quincunx with the sun, right? And this is now in Pleiadian territory. So the first adjustment we need to make here is this initiation and this very playful initiation of like, we know we're getting there. We are aware of and can anticipate the powers that we are creating as a result of our alchemical action, right? And we are playing at it, and it's foreshadowing, and we're kind of emulating where we're getting to. And there's a real determination here to give lesser potentials way more meaning, right? And so we're kind of like riding our little Pegasus rocking horse here, being like, one day I'll be a real boy and I'll be doing this, right? And so, but the moon, again, being the moon, especially in Taurus like this, is just like, you know what? I'm totally here emotionally and I feel that I'm here to just give of myself for the collective good. Right? And it's not about action. It's just about being in this moment. And so there's a real in conjunct with those two energies and cultivating natural energies for collective use. And both of these aspects seem to be based on, the meaning of the social order and the welfare of the social order and kind of being devoted to it. It's just one end, which is our expression and our voice, and then with Mars involved is going to be very much like, I want to act on this and do something about it. And the moon in this quincunx in this moment is just like, well, I feel completely, there's nothing about how I feel on the inside that matches this or can even fit into this, right? Which is cultivating our natural energies from the inside that's going to have an impact and be used for the collective. And so right in that moment is this first time, and I wouldn't say first, but when the moon and the sun come into any relationship, you know that it has to do with the very nature of our polarity within each of us that is asking for attention. And we have to transmute this because it's not like one is better than the other. It's just the relationship that is like, the 7, the quincunx, right? Which again is the chariot, is the number 7. So right there, we have the mushy inside that is really important and very connected to the Pleiades. And we have the Mars and the sun in Sagittarius on the outside that is like, I'm going to charge forward. Well, if you don't have anything of value within the armor, then it doesn't really matter. So this was really important to start off. Then right after that, the moon comes into a trine with Pluto, comes into a trine with Venus right after. And again, we're still in the Pleiadian territory. And this is where the moon in conjunction with Algol is in a trine to Pluto. So again, there's a lot of ritualization of these external experiences that we can see them as that. And maybe there's something that needs to be released in terms of, the Gorgon, Medusa, right? Everything that the Algol, Algol is a fixed star in astrology. It almost always seems to let us know that there is some sort of violent mishap on the way or destruction, right? Because you are, in fact, decapitating the head of Medusa, right? But remember, that was what Perseus did, right? Perseus did that and was able to then use that as a way to save a lot more people by turning the crack into stone. So in trine to Pluto, it's a very seamless and very easy moment of feeling within us like to coax the depth of our soul into an experience that has to do with just a really significant, cutting away or a destruction process. It shouldn't be difficult necessarily because it's a trine, right? So it's an earth trine. But when you're talking about the nuts and bolts of reality, even with Moon and Pluto, it can have a real impact again. So right after that is when the moon comes into trine with Venus. So this is even more relevant and palpable, right? Because Venus rules Taurus, and is like, yeah, I remember, right? I remember how this feels. Remember, this is for everything. This is not just about each of us individually. It starts there. So there needs to be some sort of detachment as we are making our way up the mountain, right? There are things that we have to let go of, again, about our own self and our things that are ultimately superficial, and our soul wants to detach from them. And maybe it's our trauma, maybe it's our toxicity, maybe it could be a lot of different things. But Venus is in this position before she stations retrograde, where she's really just like focused on getting up to the top of the mountain, right? Following the trail up the mountain. Even though Pluto is soon going to destroy every opportunity to do so, and we'll have to forge a new path. But part of that is we have to let go of that which is holding us back in the first place. And it's very easy to do this right now. And this is very much the territory of the full moon lunar eclipse. 26, 27, 28 degrees Taurus. And speaking of which, this is actually directly where the moon in Taurus comes into a square with Jupiter. We just talked about Jupiter, right? Jupiter that is advocating us and representing us and giving us all the things that we need so that we can, when we are imbuing our material life with a sacredness. And so this is very bright right now, right? The moon is coming into fullness and it will not be eclipsed in any way. And so coming back around to the same location that was eclipsed first, about the capacity to rise in consciousness above our limitations, and to see a new beginning that implies a more mature response to things, and the fullness of life that is ageless. Just because we are aging or changing or growing or going through our phases does not mean it's over. It's like a woman going through menopause. Just because the mothering part of life is ending very naturally does not mean that the life is over and there's nothing to gain. This was eclipsed for us with the full moon lunar eclipse. So now it's not eclipsed, but it's going to square Jupiter and cause a lot of tension, right? Because on one level, we want to capitalize at a soul level, like these enduring potentials, right? But the real tendency here, especially in a square, potentially, well, not potentially a square, it's a definitive square, but the potential tendency here is for us to lose heart and accept lesser things because we can't find our real expansion and a sense of understanding by imbuing our material life with a sacred act in every day. So you're going to see that when people are not able to do this, and I think this is really going to express itself very strongly with the literal detachment of the soul because of certain medical interventions that are full of really more, a technology and a biotech that does do that, right? All trauma is going to impact the connection of the soul to the material body. And that's it's not just starting with the V. That's been the case forever, right? And again, the inner child part is a big part of this. I think that people are really going to become very aware. They're either going to really grow from this square and realize that even though that they are leaving behind a part of themselves, it's time to step into a completely new cycle and to see all of the potential there. But if we are losing heart, if we're accepting lesser things, if our soul is literally becoming more detached as a result of the things that we're choosing to either put in our body or engage with, this square with Jupiter, it's going to make it even more obvious how hard it's going to be to give a truly sacred connection to our everyday activity. And it's really sad, actually. You don't need to have taken the V for that to happen, but that's probably, it makes that dynamic more obvious and more real to a lot of us. So, and then the moon comes into Gemini right there, and then we start talking about Alcyon, don't we? Right? Because Alcyon is 0 degrees Gemini. This is the main star in the Pleiades star cluster. And this is where Ceres is right now, asteroid Ceres. She is in conjunction with Alcyon right now. So maybe what we could do is look at Alcyon real quick. I'll pop back over here. This is the Pleiades star cluster in the shoulder, the left shoulder of the bull, right? This is also where the heart is in your left, right? And it's not in your shoulder, but if you were to maybe shoot this animal or perhaps hunt it or use a bow and arrow, you're going to shoot right here, right? Right into the heart. And so the Pleiades is very heart chakra oriented in terms of star seeds, right? This is the opening of the heart chakra. There is so much Pleiadian energy right now that as long as you are just willing to be in openness to it and allow the connection, it's going to be very helpful, I think. So, but also too, Alcyon is the main star. It's the brightest star in the cluster, and it is the 1st degree of Gemini, which is like that glass bottom boat. Like Alcyon has probably the most awareness, and oftentimes is considered like the hen, right? The mother hen of all of the sisters, right? She is the one who's kind of in charge. And, you know, she has the eye, right? She has the eye, and the eye in the inner eye, right? And is able to access the entire realm of the collective unconscious psyche and her own psyche, because her mind is translucent, of course, but it also has a barrier, which is our own ego consciousness. So Ceres is here already in her retrograde. So the Earth is already like kind of giving this opportunity to us if we are tapped into. But the moon reaching that point is going to bring it again right into our emotional awareness, right into our intuitive channel, you know, our mind's eye, the big, you know, full range of all of it. And then is going to, of course, go back over to here. And then, so meets Ceres, meets the North Node, and then we get a pretty strong sense. And then we become like almost a reflection back to our own selves at that point, like staying open emotionally, intuitively. We crossed over and we're like, whoa, this is the whole thing. And then the opposite or the contrast to that is where the North Node still is, right? All right, well, I'm gonna be open to see what I'm going to see, right? And to be patient and to wait for it, which has been very difficult, I think, for many of us to keep that position. And then what happens after that is the moon comes into an opposition with Mars. Mars in conjunction, well, had been in conjunction with K2 and is now at 3 degrees Sagittarius, the chess game. So while Mars and our masculine really wants to act on this, I'm telling you, Mars wants to go to battle. And I'm not saying that it should or shouldn't. It's just saying you can feel it wanting to go to battle and seeing that the battle itself is where we create something new. It's probably the best case scenario for this, but the moon in opposition, right? How we actually feel about it is kind of a little bit more detached and formalized, and a formalization of collective ideals through application of reason and order to very newly discovered aspects, right? Think about it. You discover new aspects as you get the magic eye, right, of Alcyon and see things like in a way that you haven't seen before. And then you're just like, oh, okay, well, I have to stay open to allow myself to actually get the full picture here. And then you find out that there's newly discovered aspects here that you really just want to use your reason and logic and how you feel about that and creative stability. In opposition to Mars, it's going to be very difficult to keep ourselves in that creative stability of what we are actually coming to intuit, what we're going to feel in terms of new aspects of nature. Maybe they're not that new to us, but maybe we're going to see them in a way that we haven't seen them before. And we're really finishing up a lot of cycles here. There is going to be one thing that I wrote down that came to me in terms of this moon opposite Mars is a real strong I told you so wanting to come out. And maybe you just got to keep that to yourself, right? And it's tempting, right? It's tempting to be kind of emotionally, I don't want to say vacant, but emotionally kind of detached in that way, to just be like, yep, I told you this was going to happen, because that's not actually going to necessarily reinforce your position as a healer or as a wanderer or a guide. And again, it's tempting, and maybe that's how we feel, and that's okay. Just keep, again, you might want to just keep it to yourself or find a way to transmute that energy. And that's, again, the best case scenario with Mars and Sagittarius, is finding a way to transmute that energy alchemically for the highest good and not get caught up in the chess game. And so, again, this flexibility, the adaptability, the camouflage, the invisibility, right? Staying focused on our inner child and healing those wounds and getting out from under that identity. It'll be a lot easier to find your stability in that moment when Mars is itching to go to battle, right? It's the knight on the chessboard, and the knight has a unique pattern that no other piece is able to have. And so I do feel like that, there's going to be some chess moves made right now in that way. And we have to keep ourselves like in check, so that we are not pulled into the fray of the whole thing. So that is going to do it for today, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading, or if you're interested in, like I said, personal reading, how to support this work, get more information, just stick around to the end of the video and you'll get everything that you need. If you want to check out your sign, horoscope and astrology forecast for the full moon, I'm going to link that playlist at the end of this video, so you can go right to the playlist and find your sign, and it'll be there for you. So take care of yourselves today, everyone. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. As we fade into our last frame here, I'm going to go into the chat and kind of interface with y'all if you're still around, and we will be together tomorrow for the weekly astrology. So we'll be talking about the full moon tomorrow. We'll be talking about the weekend, of course, and there will be no transmission on Monday the 20th. So I will be going over the astrology of that, and we'll just start to dig into the solstice as well. So take care, everyone. I love you. God bless you. And I truly mean that. And have a great day. Bye, guys.